Ned Stark sat by the godswood, watching the smoke from his hearth curl into the cold northern sky. He whispered quietly to himself, "This secret will protect the Northland, give us the power we need." In that moment, a hush settled across Winterfell, as if even the ancient trees waited on his decision. The next morning, Ned called Little Jon beside the weirwood heart tree. Snow crunched under their boots. He placed a hand on Jon's shoulder. "You are my son," he said, voice low. Jon's dark eyes widened, his breath caught. "What? My real father me?" Ned nodded, face grim. "I raised you as Robb did. Your place is Stark, and Stark you are." News spread through the household like wildfire. Catelyn's heart quivered, her voice shook. "Jon," she nearly collapsed, pressed her hand to her lips. Yet Ned kept her silent, with a solemn look that said no one must speak this aloud. Maester Luwin watched too, eyebrows raised, torn between duty and shock. Within hours, word reached Robb and Sansa. Robb stormed into the godswood, face a thundercloud. Sansa stood by the heart tree, tears froze on her cheeks. "Brother?" she whispered. Robb's voice trembled between anger and bewilderment. "You lied for 15 years?" The hush fell deeper as Arya, Bran, and Rickon heard. Jon, overwhelmed, stumbled. His world shattered in an instant. The bastard label, the privileges, the shamet, all gained new meaning. He staggered. Over the coming days, Ned orchestrated the revelation at Feast Public Dramatic. The castle hushed. Lords and ladies gasped. Even Maester Luwin's quill froze mid-note. Ned's voice boomed. "Jon Snow stands before you not as a bastard, but a true Stark son." A crash of silver and goblets echoed. "Oh my gods!" someone cried. Shock swept Winterfell. Some whispered gratitude, others muttered betrayal. The small folk gaped at Jon, who clutched his cup, pale as snow. The air buzzed. What does this mean for the North? For the Wall? Fear and hope tingled together? Jon's pulse thudded loud. "Is this real?" Ned pulled him close and said, "You belong here. You will fight for the Starks in Winterfell, in the North." Jon steadied himself, heart pounding. At the look Ned gave him, stones could crack. This was no lie of kindness, it was chess in the Game of Thrones. A raven arrived that night from King's Landing with urgent news. Queen Cersei demands an audience with the Stark patriarch about Jon's identity. The note crackled in Ned's hand. He looked at Jon. "They know," he said quietly. Jon's breath froze. "Wait. My God." Winterfell erupted. Jon stared at his father, at his siblings, at the sealed raven. The game had begun. The raven's black wings vanished into the white sky. But its message hung like a storm over Winterfell. Ned stood silently in the great hall, his mind racing. The Lannisters knew. That much was certain. And if Cersei knew, then it was only a matter of time before Robert Baratheon did too. And Robert, Ned's oldest friend, would not take betrayal lightly. Jon stood outside the hall, gripping the pommel of a wooden practice sword. His breath steamed in the frosty air, but his mind was burning. "Trueborn, son of Ned Stark. How could I not know?" The words echoed. Not just in his head, but in the eyes of every servant who now bowed with a little less hesitation. The guards who saluted a little too sharply. Respect came fast and hollow. That evening, the Stark household gathered again. The air was thick. Sansa sat with a rigid back. Arya fidgeted beside Bran. Catelyn looked like stone, her lips pressed in a line so thin it might vanish. Ned addressed them, voice grave. "The Queen has summoned us." They questioned Jon's legitimacy. "I will go to King's Landing." Jon's head jerked up. "And me?" "No," Ned replied firmly. "You stay. The North needs a Stark here." Robb bristled. "He is not ready. I am." Jon snapped, the anger spilling over. "If I'm truly your son, then treat me like one." Long silence fell. Ned didn't answer. He only stared into the fire as if trying to see the path ahead. But outside the hall, whispers were louder. Sir Roderick heard them first, muttering from the guards, then from the small folk. "Is it true? Jon Snow, a Stark? What about Robb no more?" What if the queen comes for him? By nightfall, the rumor had twisted itself. Not only was Jon Stark's son, he was his firstborn, older than Robb. Questions bled through the walls of Winterfell. Would the Northern Lords support Jon now? Then came the second raven, this one from Lord Tywin. It was colder than the snow outside. Ned Stark, we know what lie you've hidden in Winterfell. If Jon Snow bears your name, he becomes a threat not just to our crown, but to your entire house. Let us remind you. The last man who played games with lineage lost his head, Ned read. The letter aloud to Maester Luwin, and something changed in his face. The weight of lies was finally catching up. The burden he took to protect Jon now threatened all he had built. And just as Ned considered destroying the letter, a third raven arrived, this time from the wall. It was from Benjen Stark. The letter was short. Too short. You've made a grave mistake, brother. It was never meant to stay. And now it's too late. Wait, what does that mean? Ned's hand trembled. He read it again. And again. Jon, watching from the corner, saw the fear for the first time in his father's eyes. Winter wasn't just coming. It had arrived. The halls of Winterfell had never felt colder. After Benjen's warning, Ned's nights turned sleepless. His thoughts chased one another. Robert, Cersei, Tywin, Jon, and the one name he hadn't uttered aloud in years. Rhaegar. He sat alone, facing the fire. In his hand, the pendant Lyanna had worn its sapphire centerpiece, now dull with time. She had begged him to protect her son, and he had. But what if he had taken it too far? What if naming Jon a Stark wasn't saving him, but damning them all? Meanwhile, Jon walked the courtyard like a stranger in his own skin. Guards bowed, maids curtsied, but their eyes held questions. Unease. Why did Lord Stark keep him hidden? What else does he hide? Even Robb looked at him differently now. The warmth between them had cooled into silence. One day in the yard, they trained together. Jon's blade moved like fire, precise, swift. Robb swung heavier, angrier. Steel clashed until Maester Luwin intervened. Enough, he shouted. Jon wiped blood from his lip. You think I want this? Robb sheathed his sword. Doesn't matter. You have it. That night, the Lords of the North began arriving. News had spread like wildfire. Ned Stark had legitimized Jon. The Karstarks. The Umbers. The Mormonts. They came with questions. Is Jon to be heir? What of Robb? Will the Queen act against us? Ned stood in the great hall, eyes scanning the banners. Jon is my son, he declared, but Robb remains my heir. A long, tense silence. Then Lord Umber grunted, dark as Stark. Just make sure the boy can swing a sword when the time comes. Wait. So they accepted it? Yes, but not all. Lady Mage Mormont, grim and suspicious, pulled Ned aside. There are whispers in the south. Jon is not yours, but the son of Rhaegar Targaryen. Ned's blood ran cold. You lie well, Lord Stark, she said softly. But lies rot from the inside. And in King's Landing, the whispers had turned into wildfire. Cersei Lannister read Tywin's letter with a frown. He's legitimized the bastard. Yes, your grace, replied Pycelle. She stood, pacing. Then the North has gained a prince, and the king a betrayal. Robert Baratheon roared when he heard. Ned? My Ned? He named the boy his heir. He smashed his goblet. I trusted him. I gave him everything. Littlefinger smiled from the shadows. Not heir, your grace. But power. He's building a kingdom behind your back. Robert slumped into his chair. He wouldn't, not Ned. But the seed had been planted, Varys whispered to Cersei. Jon Snow may be more than just Stark. He may be fire and ice. Back at Winterfell, Jon stood atop the walls, staring northward. The sky was gray. The winds howled. Then he saw it. A rider fast, desperate, bursting through the snow. He wore the black of the Night's Watch. Jon rushed down as the gates opened. The rider fell from his horse, blood staining his furs. He gasped, White Walkers. They've breached the Frostfangs. Castle Black is not safe. Everyone froze. Maester Luwin helped the man inside. Ned looked at Jon. Everything is changing, he said. Jon nodded, eyes wide. Then I want to be ready. The Night's Watch rider lay on a straw bed, soaked in sweat, muttering things no sane man would say. They rise. The dead rise, eyes like ice. They don't bleed. Maester Lewin tried to calm him with milk of the poppy, but the man clutched Jon's arm with frozen fingers. You have fire. In your blood, he whispered. They'll come for you. Ash. Jon staggered back, shaken to his core. What did he mean? Fire in my blood? The words clawed at the back of his mind. Ned stood in the doorway, eyes shadowed. The following dawn, Ned summoned Jon to the crypts of Winterfell. They walked in silence past the statues of Stark ancestors, deeper into the cold. At Lyanna's tomb, Ned paused. His hand trembled as he touched the stone. There's something you need to know. Jon's breath caught. You are not my son. The words crashed into him like a hammer. What? You are Lyanna's and Rhaegar's. Wait, what? Everything shifted? The ground beneath him was no longer solid? No. Jon's voice cracked. You told me I lied to protect you. It's from Robert, from everyone. If he knew, he would have killed you. It's just for your name. Jon's head spun. So I'm a Targaryen? Yes. And you told the world I was yours so I wouldn't be killed? Ned nodded. But now, I see I may have brought a war instead. Jon stumbled back, fury and grief and confusion twisting in his chest. You used me to gain power. No, Ned said, his voice hollow. I used the lie to shield you, but yes. The North began to look at you like a trueborn, and I did not stop them. Jon's voice dropped. You made me a Stark, but I'm not. Ned looked him straight in the eye. You are. Mine. In every way that matters. But Jon couldn't hear it. He walked out into the night, the snow biting at his skin, the words ringing in his head. Rhaegar. Targaryen. 8. That same night, the Northern Lords argued in the Great Hall. Some demanded Jon's title be stripped. Others insisted he had the blood of kings. He may be the true heir, shouted Lord Glover. To what? Spat Karstark. 2 dragons. Then Maester Lewin entered, face pale. The rider from the wall has died. Silence. But not before leaving one final warning. They march now. No one spoke. And then the horn sounded once, then twice. A rider approached. Winterfell, but not from the south. From the north. And when the gates opened, every guard stepped back in horror. It was Benjen Stark. Half-dead eyes hollow, skin pale, ice clinging to his beard. No, this can't be. He looked at Jon and said just 2 words. They're here. The great hall erupted into chaos. Benjen Stark stood still, like a ghost conjured from a nightmare. His face was pale, his breath barely visible despite the cold. Jon rushed forward, but Benjen raised a trembling hand. Don't come closer. His voice was dry, like leaves in winter. Ned stepped between them. Benjen, how? Are you alive? I'm not, he said, eyes dark. Not fully. Jon froze. What does that mean? Benjen looked at him really looked hand for the first time. Jon felt like the answer was buried in something far worse than death. They took me. The White Walkers. I escaped, but not before they changed me. I'm bound to both worlds now. Gasps echoed across the hall. The wall no longer holds them, Benjen continued. They've passed the Frostfangs. Thousands, maybe more. And they are coming south. How is this even possible? The Lord shouted, demanded answers. Is this a trick? Another Stark lie? But it wasn't. One look at Benjen's face silenced every skeptic. The chill around him was real. Even the torches flickered. Jon turned to Ned. We have to fight. Ned nodded grimly. We'll call the banners. But Benjen shook his head. You'll need more than banners. The North alone cannot stop what's coming. Then he turned to Jon, eyes filled with something haunting. They're drawn too. You. Jon stepped back. What? The blood in you? Targaryen blood, fire and ice, it calls to them. We're born from both death wants you. Oh my gods. That night, Jon lay awake. His world had shattered 3 times in as many days. From bastard to Stark. From Stark to Targaryen. From heir to bait, The next morning, Ned summoned a war council. The great hall buzzed with movement. Robb stood beside his father, Arya, listening from the shadows, Sansa silent and pale. "We must ride south," Ned said. "We need the king." "Will he listen?" asked Lord Manderley. "Will he even believe?" Jon stepped forward. "Then I'll make him." All heads turned. "I'll go to King's Landing," Jon said. "Let them see me. Let them hear the truth. Maybe if they see what's coming, they'll unite." Catelyn rose.
What?
"You're not going. You're no Stark. No son of mine, I'm not yours," Jon cut her off. "But I'm still a Stark by name." Robb's face twisted. "You think you can just walk into the Red Keep and be heard?" Jon's voice didn't shake. "I'm not asking. I'm going." Heavy silence. Then Ned placed a hand on Jon's shoulder. "You'll ride with me?" Jon blinked. "You're coming too?" "If I let you go alone," Ned said, "I'd be more of a fool than Robert ever was. Wait, Lord Stark going back to the capital, after what he's done, after lying to the crown?" Yes, and behind them, the North would prepare for war. But as they readied their departure, Varys in. King's Landing opened a scroll and smiled. "The game has changed," he whispered. The ride to King's Landing was silent at first. Snow clung to their cloaks, but tension hung heavier. Jon rode beside Ned, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Behind them trailed a small party-trusted men, few in number, fast in purpose. Robb had begged to join them, but Ned refused. The North needs its wolf. As they crossed the neck, Jon couldn't ignore the weight of his identity. Every time a soldier bowed or a merchant called him Lord Snow, it twisted in his gut. What will they call me in the capital? What if they already? No. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, Varys whispered into Queen Cersei's ear. "They're coming. Both of them." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "Dard and his bastard." "No," Varys corrected gently, "his nephew." Cersei stood, pacing. "So it's true? He's a Targaryen." Varys' smile was slight. "Rhaegar's son, hidden in the north, raised to be loyal, dangerous." She turned to Jaime, who leaned against a pillar. "He must not reach the king." Jaime scoffed. "You want him dead? I want him silenced." Littlefinger, ever lurking, stepped from the shadows. "Shh. I can arrange an accident. Perhaps a bandit attack." Too obvious, Cersei snapped. "Let him speak. Let Robert see." Haemon then let Robert swing the sword himself. Jaime chuckled. "Cruel. I like it." Back on the road, Jon dreamed of flames. He stood in a field of ash. Wolves howled. Dragons screamed. The wall burned, and from the smoke stepped a figure tall, cloaked in shadow, wearing armor shaped like icicles. "Come to me," the figure hissed. "Blood of ice, son of fire." Jon awoke, drenched in sweat. "What?" Ned rode ahead, unaware of the nightmare chasing his son. They reached the gates of King's Landing by nightfall. Gold cloaks opened the gate without question. Ed's name still commanded respect. But as they passed through, Jon felt eyes watching. It's not commoners, spies, birds of many feathers. In the Red Keep, Robert Baratheon stood at the edge of his solar, goblet in hand. He's fatter now, slower but still dangerous. When Ned entered, silence fell like a hammer. Robert turned. His eyes were red, his voice slow. "You lied to me." Ned said nothing at first. "You said he was yours?" "Your blood, your shame?" Ned nodded. "And I did it to protect him." Robert threw the goblet across the room. "Lied to your king. I lied to my friend." Robert staggered forward, face flushed. "If he's Rhaegar's son, he dies, like all the rest." "No." The word came not from Ned, but Jon. He stepped forward, head held high. "You kill me, and you kill your last chance." Robert blinked. "What?" "The White Walkers are real. The wall has fallen. They march south. I have their attention." Cersei, sitting nearby, laughed bitterly. "You expect us to believe the dead walk again?" Jon met her eyes. "Then ask your spies. Ask the Night's Watch. Ask Benjen Stark if he survives the cold long enough." The room fell silent. Then Robert, eyes bloodshot, whispered, What the hell is happening to my kingdom? Littlefinger smiled. It's no longer just your kingdom, your grace. Robert looked at Jon, and for the first time, saw not a bastard, but a storm coming to claim the throne. King Robert sat heavily in his throne, sweat trickling down his temple. His mind raced, torn between the roaring voices of the past and the haunting reality in front of him. Rhaegar's son alive. Speaking of ice demons and northern doom, Jon stood still, calm, but burning inside. If you don't, believe me, let me ride to the wall. See it yourself, what we face. Won't spare crowns or bastards. Robert looked to Ned, eyes pleading. Tell me this isn't madness. Ned's voice was firm. It's the truth. We don't have long. But the court was already splintering. Lords debated fiercely. Some scoffed, claiming the North was stirring fear to grab power. Others, including Lord Renly, leaned forward with interest. The wall falling, Renly whispered. That changes everything. Then Varys stepped forward, soft as a ghost. The boy speaks truth. My little birds tell of unrest at Eastwatch disappearances. Entire villages swallowed in silence. Robert's face went pale. And you waited to tell me? I needed proof, Varys said smoothly. Now you have it. Cersei stood, fury coiled in every word. You will not reward this deception with trust. The North lied to you, Robert. He is Targaryen. Their blood, their madness. And yet, said Renly, rising, he has not asked for the throne. Only a war council. Wait, what's happening? The king turned back to Jon. What do you want? Unity, Jon said. For the living to stand together, and for the crown to prepare for war. Robert stood, towering over him. You think men will follow you? No, Jon said. But they might follow a Targaryen, who is raised as a Stark. The room gasped. Even Littlefinger blinked outside. Ravens flew east, south, west, to Dorne, to the Vale, to Riverrun. The great houses would now hear a name they thought long buried: Jon Targaryen, a prince raised in the snow calling for war. That night, Ned and Robert drank in silence. I should hate you, Robert said, for keeping that boy from me, for keeping her secret. I did what I had to, Ned replied. Robert looked into his cup. I loved her too, you know, but I killed Rager. Oh, and I'd do it again. Ned didn't respond. Across the castle, Jon walked the gardens, lost in thought. That's when she appeared. Dark hair, golden skin, sly eyes. You're the dragon wolf they all whisper about, he turned. And who are you, Obara Sand? She said with a smirk. And if your war is real, you'll need Dorne. Dorne? What are they doing here? You have enemies in the north, she said. And fire in your name. That's enough for some, and too much for others. Back in Winterfell, the storm had broken. The White Walkers reached Last Hearth. The Umbers never stood a chance. And Benjen Stark, half-dead, watched as ancient ice consumed the keep. He turned south, riding again, this time not to warn, but to say, goodbye. Winterfell burned, not with fire but with frost. The outer walls of Last Hearth lay shattered, buried beneath mountains of snow and bone. A single horn blew in the distant woods, a warning too late to save anyone. The White Walkers had arrived. Benjen Stark galloped through snowdrifts taller than men, his half-frozen body barely clinging to the saddle. Behind him, the dead marched in silence, tireless, merciless. In King's Landing, Jon stood at the steps of the Dragonpit, staring at the gathering of lords. Houses great and small had answered the call: Tyrells, Martells, Arryns. Even a few from the Reach who once knelt to Lannister gold. The Targaryen name carried a weight none could ignore, and Jon carried it now. He wore no crown, bore no sigil, but when he spoke they listened. We have no time, he said. The wall has fallen. Last Hearth is gone. If we argue who wears a crown while the dead march, we all lose. Some nodded, others whispered. Lady Olenna tilted her head. Speaks like a soldier, not a prince. Renly smiled. Now then, perhaps we need fewer princes. But in the red. Keep. Not everyone welcomed this unity. Cersei Lannister sat alone in her chamber, wine untouched. Her hand clenched the edge of her throne. "He threatens everything," she whispered. "My children's future, my house, my reign." Mr. Qyburn entered, cloaked in shadows. "Shall I ready the weapon?" Cersei looked up. "Not yet. Let him prove himself. Let him win their hearts. Then let him fall harder." Wait, she's planning something? Oh yes. The very next day. A raven arrived from the north. Maester Luwin read it aloud in the Dragonpit. "Last hearth is lost. The Umbers are dead. The dead march south. Benjen Stark was last seen riding toward Winterfell." Silence fell. Jon looked at Ned. It started. They left that very night. Jon, Ned, Renly, and a host of northern riders. Behind them followed Tyrell's spearmen, Dorne's cavalry, even a few knights of the Vale. A shaky alliance, but it was all they had. March north was brutal. Frozen rivers, ambushes in the dark. Wildlings reported entire forests stripped of life birds gone, rivers frozen, animals dead in their tracks at Winterfell. Robb stood atop the battlements, eyes locked on the horizon. He saw them first. Benjen's. Horse.riders. Blood on the saddle. Then the sound came like 1,000 bones grinding. Beneath boots, the dead had reached Winterfell's gates. This can't be happening, but it was. Robb raised the horn. Once, twice, 3 times. Then he turned and roared, 2 arms. The battle for Winterfell had begun, and Jon was still a day away. Snow fell like ash from the sky. Winterfell trembled under the weight of 1,000 frozen corpses. The dead climbed the walls like spiders, silent, relentless. Robb Stark led from the ramparts, sword in hand, shouting commands as fire arrows lit the dark. Ser Rodrik fought by his side, slashing at things that should not move, should not breathe. Inside the gates, Arya darted through corridors, blade flashing. Ghosts from childhood whispered in every corner, but she moved with deadly grace. "Not today," she whispered. "Not me." Bran sat with Hodor in the crypts, eyes rolled back, skin clammy. He had gone into the ravens searching for Jon, searching for hope. What he saw made him scream. A great shadow of ice, king with no eyes, and the voice whispering Jon's name. At dawn, the riders appeared on the horizon. Jon, Ned, and their makeshift army rode hard, blades drawn, faces grim. The snow turned red as the cavalry clashed with the undead at Winterfell's broken gate. Tyrell's shields formed tight lines. Dorne's riders flanked from the sides. The Vale Knights, steel flashing in sunlight, rode like thunder. Jon found Robb atop the walls, fighting to whites. Leapt from his horse, blades singing through air. "Took your time," Robb grunted. "Had to make an entrance," Jon replied. Gritting his teeth, Ned Stark stood in the courtyard, sword dripping black blood. He looked older, colder, like the north itself had crawled into his bones. Then it happened. A scream echoed across the field. Not human, not white, something else. The ice cracked in the distance, and through the fog stepped a figure on a dead horse. Pale, armored, crowned in frost. The Night King? No, he's here. Jon turned, heart pounding. Get Bran. But it was too late. The Night King raised one hand, and the dead rose again. Even the ones just killed. Even the ones they loved. Seer. Rodrik.Maester Luwin Theon Greyjoy, who had arrived the night before with a handful of iron Bernand, died protecting Bran. Now they stood again, and they weren't themselves anymore. Jon shouted, "Fall back." But the walls crumbled under the weight of reanimated flesh. Winterfell was dying. In the Godswood, Bran's eyes snapped open. "They're not here for the North," he whispered. Hoda groaned. "They're here for Jon," outside the Night King. Raised his spear, aims it at Jon, and for the first time, Jon feels cold, not from snow, but from death itself. Time slowed. The Night King's spear gleamed with frost. Drawn back like the breath of winter itself, Jon stared down its tip, frozen in place. His sword trembled in his grip not from fear, but from something deeper. The pull, the bond. He wasn't just a target, he was the reason. Then a scream tore through the sky. Not a man's, not a beast. Single quotes. Is the clouds above? A shadow descended. Wings like sails, scales glinting crimson and gold regal. And atop him, Daenerys Targaryen. Wait, Daenerys? Yes, she had received word. Too late to join the march, but just in time to bring fire where the North had none left. Rhaegal crashed into the battlefield, fire streaming from his throat. The dead burned. The Night King turned his gaze skyward. Unfazed, Jon looked up his meeting Daenerys's, and in that moment, she knew. He was not just blood. He was the key. The fire swirled around them. The battlefield turned to ash and embers. Ned and Robb fought. Through a wall of flame, Arya moved like smoke, cutting down whites with a fury born of rage. Bran whispered to the wind, they must end it now, or there will be no dawn. Jon charged straight at the Night King, their blades medicine and steel. Blue fire crackled on one side, Valyrian steel hissed on the other. Every strike sent shockwaves through the ground. Jon's arms bled. His breath came in ragged bursts. Then the Night King drove his sword through Jon's side. He fell. Blood soaked the snow. Note, Daenerys screamed, diving Rhaegal toward the Frost Lord. She unleashed a pillar of fire, roaring with vengeance. But the Night King did not burn. He walked through it, toward her, until a dagger struck his chest from behind. RYA, the same blade used to stop the war once before. This time it shattered. His heart completely. The Night King screamed, and the dead fell. All of them silence followed. Then the wind blew, and it was over. Jon awoke 2 days later, wrapped in furs. Alive, Daenerys sat beside him. He nearly died. I thought I did. You did enough. Ned entered, face worn but proud. You brought us unity, at the cost. Of everything, no, Jon said. Not everything. Weeks later, the lords met again. Jon stood before them not as king, but as the bridge between fire and ice. He would not sit the Iron Throne. Daenerys would, but the North would remain. Free, allied only in peace. Ned returned to Winterfell. Robb ruled the North. Arya sailed west, and Jon. He went to the wall where it all began, to protect it and watch the horizon. For whatever darkness came next, and that's the end of our story. If you enjoyed this twist on Game of Thrones, make sure to subscribe to our channel and comment below. Part shocked you the most? What twist did you love or hate?